Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing a twin flame energy check-in reading. There are 4 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Rose Quartz. Group 2 is the Larvikite. Group 3 is the Blue Calcite. And group 4 is the Dalmatian Jasper. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups, or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Rose Quartz. So I'm going to start by taking a look at what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you and the connection. Where are they at energetically right now? Okay, so we've got the 6 of Cups in reverse, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. We've got the 8 of Cups in reverse, so more water energy. Queen of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Queen of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Archangel Michael. You're working very closely with this powerful archangel who's protecting and guiding you through this situation. And throat chakra. The angels are helping you lovingly speak your truth. So definitely your twin flame is having second thoughts about walking away from you. It doesn't feel to be something, though, that they are in a position of having this regret and that the next thought very immediately is, well, I'll just backtrack and kind of make up for lost time. It feels that reconciliation may be something that is kind of like distant on the horizon as far as what they think is possible. They may be having a little bit of sort of a pity party right now, not really looking at solutions, but being sort of like overwhelmed with this difficulty, with this truth, a lot of harsh truths, a lot of epiphanies with Archangel Michael and his sword of truth right there. Something that may have really come into their awareness as far as the grass not being greener on the other side. If there's a third party situation involved, like with this Queen of Wands and Queen of Pentacles, it almost feels to be something that connection is checking off all the boxes in like a practical sense. It feels like those two people are, they're getting along well enough. On the surface, things look good. There may be a lot of like mutual attraction, passion, but as far as deep emotional connection, there's a lot that's lacking there. As far as spiritual connection, also kind of an absence of that. And it feels that beyond those sort of surface level qualities, this is causing your twin flame to feel that they had forfeited the real thing for something that is almost like a watered down version of that, in a sense. It's doable, it's okay, it's fine enough, but it's not wonderful like what they had with you. Even if there was a lot of untapped potential in this situation, there's something that just keeps like drawing them back to this curiosity of like, what would have happened if I had stuck this out? What would have happened if I had made a different decision, to try and push through whatever the barriers were in the past, to speak truth about, being very maybe overwhelmed by feelings, very confused, very torn in different directions. What if I had, talked this through a little bit more with myself or with you? We could be in a very different position. It's almost like a sense of they feel that they have walked away from like deep spiritual fulfillment in a sense, which in the past may not have been relevant for them. That may not have been important. It may not have been something that they valued, but they're seeing that now. If there's not a third party situation involved in this circumstance, then this can also really tie into the sense of, maybe just walking away to keep options open, wanting to remain single, to sort of like focus on work or building other things in the material world. They may have achieved some degree of success with that, but it's almost they're celebrating alone with this Queen of Wands, even if they've got other people around them. There may be kind of like good news that they're wanting to share with you, but feeling very much at a loss, that it's awkward, or based on the circumstances, whatever has happened, the fact that they've walked away, there's a closed door, there's silence, that they can't exactly just reach out and share some of these kind of milestone events. And it feels that it's leading into a lot of loneliness for them at this point in time. It's this energy of nostalgia, missing you, wishing that you were there for them during this phase or stage of their life, of their journey, through some kind of milestone that they may have achieved as well, that they could have prioritized over the connection. Maybe the intensity and nature of it, they felt that they didn't have the bandwidth or the time or the psychic ability. Their schedule is very full. This may have come very much as a surprise to them. Caught them really by surprise, the intensity and nature of what they were feeling for you, that they just didn't see how that could fit into their material world in the past. And there's a sense of almost wishing that they had done more to try and make some room to sort of like reorganize their priorities in a sense, rather than seeing it as like an either or situation, as they may have viewed the circumstance and you in this situation relative to their life in the past. It feels that there's almost a sense of that they've cheated themselves out of something. So a bit of regret as far as that's concerned. It feels like they're trying their best to just be very present in their reality, to deal with like the day to day, maybe kind of focusing a lot on work and just what's around them. But there is this sense of longing, this sense of regret at having walked away. Some kind of personal truth as well, that they may be kind of just in their mind, kind of like having conversations with you, replaying the conversations that took place in the past, and almost thinking of things they wish that they had said different, had said better, like if given another chance or another opportunity, this is what they would do moving forward. So kind of a lot of the woulda, coulda, shoulda feels like is what's really happening here. But again, with the Six of Cups in reverse, it doesn't really feel that they're necessarily at the point of being motivated to like take action steps towards you. It feels very much like an internalized energy at this point in time. Like they're just sort of sitting there almost in spectator mode, reviewing these kind of memories, getting these flashes, seeing things even as they're kind of like looking back over a decision to walk away, or someplace where, the momentum of the buildup between the two of you, it really just stalled out. And there may be things that are reminding them of that. Magnetized back in your direction, back in the direction of these memories, replaying that. It could have to do with something like a memory that popped up on their phone, for example, a photo of the two of you, or of something that reminded them of you. And it's just like this watershed of all these memories coming back up. And it feels like something that's even it's surprising, or it's sort of perplexing to them. They're really examining this because maybe just sort of like a trigger reaction, the way in which they had sort of associated emotionally with you, with that particular memory, with that space of time. Like in the past with the two of you, there's a different reaction now. There's almost this pull towards you, rather than an energy of just automatically kind of recoiling or trying to shoo that away. It's causing them to want to kind of analyze that a little more. Like, what's changed? It doesn't feel like anything they've actively been trying to work at. Nevertheless, something has shifted energetically within them, and that's what's caught their attention. So very much like self-directed energy, but it's energy of really kind of evaluating sort of how they've handled, how they've received this energy in the past, what their kind of feelings were in association to you the last time that they saw you, the last time they reviewed this kind of like box of memories, for example, replaying things that were said, maybe even like listening to voice clips or, voicemails, or rereading old text messages and emails, and sort of like seeing things from a different angle, things that may have really been lost in translation, or that they had misinterpreted in the past. Maybe they were just in a very triggered state, a very stressed out state, very kind of like pressured by the intensity of the connection. It's almost like some of that pressure has dissipated, and it's very surprising to them that they're not automatically just falling back into that same reactive energy that they had before. So let's take a look now and see what some of the kind of the fears, blocks, obstacles, and challenges that they're dealing with, either in conjunction to this connection. Aside from, it feels like a bit of confusion, that they're sort of like, they're seeing the situation differently, they're feeling differently about you. It's not the same gut reaction when they hear your name or when something reminds them of you, or these kind of like, you know, direct sort of associations. So it feels like that is something that's almost, it's stopping them in a way from their forward progress of just kind of like going through the motions, moving through their life. You know, any kind of like facade or mask they had up as far as, oh, they're okay with the separation. There's a little bit of, they're not really okay with it now at this point. Now they're sort of second guessing themselves. And so that's creating sort of a slowdown in the pace in which they had been moving forward. So aside from that, what are some of the other kind of like blocks, fears, obstacles, and challenges they're dealing with in their life, or even in conjunction to the situation with you? Okay, so we've got memory, commitment, and dominance. So this commitment card is really tying into if there's a third party situation here in this circumstance, maybe that has come up in the time since the two of you have parted ways with one another. Maybe this is something where you were made to feel like an option in the past and they chose to return to somebody, or, you know, chose to invest with another partner. It's almost with this kind of nest here that's just sort of like half formed on this card. It's sort of like, it's okay on the surface level, but that situation is lacking depth and substance. And it almost feels in conjunction with these kind of like these memories, these like literal memories which are surfacing. You know, memories is in like remember when kind of reminders on the cell phone, you know, that are pulling up these things that just kind of draw their mind to you. Maybe like literal photographs of you, or, you know, times that you'd spent together, that is sparking this whole new reaction in them. It's almost like creating this place of contrast, where they can't ignore the fact that although what they are dealing with currently is, you know, it's stable enough, it's satisfying enough, but it's lacking in that essential kind of like depth and electricity and the potential and kind of like this doorway to the higher level love, both with its triggerings and growth potential that they had experienced with you. And so that feels to be something that they're stepping into this energy of really questioning that, really looking within, and it feels like struggling to maintain, to, you know, the upper hand, the upper position in kind of just moving through their life and saying, I'm very fine with the way things are, that they're having to really dominate themselves at this point in time from wanting to sort of drift off into those memories, drift off into those thoughts. It may be very difficult to remain present and available to a current partnership because there's this kind of awareness that has come to them that is very confusing. It's fascinating. It's caught their attention in some way. It's almost this energy of like, how did I miss this the first time around? What has shifted? What have I not seen correctly? What did I overlook? What was I blind to in this current situation? Or sort of like, what was I so afraid of as far as investing with you and investing with that connection that chose them to maybe move in the direction of something, you know, more just kind of predictable, stable, you know, on the surface level, very satisfying, but again, lacking in that sort of essential depth, that like next level of intimacy that the two of you had experienced with one another. So that feels to be something that they're really they're chewing on that right now. They're trying to figure that out, and it's sapping a lot of their energetic resources, their psychic resources. It's taking up like literally a lot of time in their mental space. You know, it's something that the partner that they're with may be kind of like noticing that they're very absent-minded, they're very distracted. You know, things are just starting to slip as far as the cohesion between those two people. It doesn't feel to be anything where, it's creating like big waves in the situation yet, but that other person may be noticing that like something is off. And so it could be kind of directing more of their attention towards your person, towards your twin flame, this other individual, this third party, trying to kind of sleuth out or figure out, what's up, what's cooking, what's going on beneath the surface. Like, asking your twin flame kind of, why do you seem so distracted? You're here with me, but your mind is somewhere else. And they're kind of having to, pull themselves out of this energy of memory and try to just kind of be in the body, be very present, but it doesn't feel to be something that it's very successful. It's almost like they're trying too hard. They try to overcompensate in a sense to make up for that. A bit of like a guilty conscience going on as well. So it may be something that's at like the prelude of creating stress upon that situation, waves in that situation that it may or may not, that third party situation may or may not get through this period. This may be kind of, the pressure that just sort of shakes them loose from that. And then they are able to pick a little bit deeper into this themselves, maybe make different decisions, maybe move back towards you in the future. But aside from like a third party situation, it feels to be something that, again, they're very much like haunted by the memory of a choice that was made to walk away. They keep revisiting this. They're keep being things that like remind them in direct ways and subtle ways. It feels like even just as they're, going through the motions of their day-to-day life, almost like if they're working out or, driving to work or, just going through very kind of monotonous tasks, and the mind is just sort of like drifting off into fantasy land, into dreamland, and here pop up these kind of memories of you. But other than the way in which they had previously been dealing with that, maybe pushing it away, maybe allowing themselves to indulge as a bit of forbidden fruit, there's something that's almost like, with this throat chakra and this Archangel Michael card, it's something that's just like a very shocking reality. It almost like snaps them to attention. Like, how did I miss that detail? How did I misconstrue that? How was I seeing this from one angle, or just dismissing this from one angle? Maybe just trying to argue away their feelings as, oh, this is all just passion based, and it's better that we not be together because it was really, lacking in the ability to build a solid foundation with one another. This may have been a story that they told themselves, and it feels like even that dominant narrative that they had been sort of living under, that was justifying their excuses or justifying their actions or inactions in the past, those excuses are there's no longer substance in there. It's very hard for them to stay committed to a decision that they made. In regards to this situation, most likely to detach, to put up a wall, block off their feelings, deny their feelings, run in the other direction, whatever that looks like. It's on shaky ground. They're seeing it as almost just, it's not a solid structure. It's not a solid course of reasoning. It's something that maybe was done very impulsively. It was done from a certain level of awareness, but now they're almost able to like look deeper, look beyond that facade, and see that this might have been something that was, again, just very impulsive, where kind of like fear was dominating. This feels to be something that they're struggling with as well. Why, if they are now able to sort of see things from a different angle, why did they make that decision in the past? Who was really pulling the strings in that? Was this a heart-based decision or something that was more ego-based and fear-based? So it feels like there's some pressure that's building in this circumstance, and it's just something at this point in time that there's a lot of focus trying to like puzzle that out and to really like look within. It feels like somebody who's almost kind of like at the brink of getting very resentful towards themselves for being confronted directly with some kind of aspect of self-sabotage that may be a pattern for them, but they've just kind of gone through the motions, and it was easier to just kind of project out, stuff it away, kind of dismiss it or banish it from the memory and just continue on in this manner. But in this particular situation, something that's changed. Maybe this has to do with like healing that you've been doing, some way in which you've shifted your focus off of this connection a bit. You're working on yourself, you're dealing with yourself, you're confronting your shadows. It's cleared something up for your twin. It's brought them some kind of illumination. You've energetically imparted to them the eyes to see themselves in a more profound manner, and it's an uncomfortable truth, and they're almost at the point of looking at it from different angles and starting to move to that point of like, wait a minute, I should be really offended at myself for what took place. I should be really upset at myself for a decision that was made that felt like the right thing to do, but then now all this time later, however much time has passed, or just whatever this shift is, where they're really second guessing that, and like, ultimately this wasn't the decision in my highest good. This doesn't feel right. I misjudged the situation. I was too quick to dismiss this. I was running from something that was actually really good, or actually had a lot of potential to become something really good. And so they feel almost like at the brink of going to battle with themselves. So kind of like, it almost feels like the energy of when a thunderstorm is getting ready to happen, and kind of like the barometric pressure is building, and there's, the clouds are starting to kind of roll in. There's not exactly the raindrops. The chaos hasn't really started yet, but it's that sense of pressure. It's that sense of buildup. That feels to be the biggest kind of like obstacle they're dealing with, is just sort of like looking around and feeling like, wait a minute, I feel very tricked in this situation, only they've done it to themselves, basically. So yeah, this might be something that they're getting ready to kind of step into a period of like deep personal struggle, and to really, a doorway to kind of like looking within at some wounds within themselves that, have really sort of like orchestrated and choreographed these circumstances right here, which it feels like are very uncomfortable from the inside. Outside, they may be able to like maintain their status quo. Everything's going fine, with the exception of being a little distracted, being a little absent-minded, but it feels like it's an internal battle. It's like internal turmoil, like a tightness in the chest, like anger starting to kind of really rise up from the depths of themselves. This kind of like root chakra energy right here. Their blood's starting to boil a bit, and it's like, wait a minute. What did I do? Why did I do this? Why did this seem like a good decision at the time? And then I'm not able to fully just continue to kind of like side with myself in that regard. Like something has shifted. They're seeing it all from a different perspective. So I'm going to take a look just real quick and see what are their possible actions towards you, if any, at this point in time. Okay, so we've got the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. So this is, speaking about just kind of, it's more of that journey within. It doesn't feel, and that makes sense with this energy right here, that they're not necessarily at the point of speaking some kind of truth. That Six of Cups in reverse, and this isn't like forever and ever. It's just kind of like in the immediate sort of range of the energies of this reading. Whenever you find this, these are timeless messages, so just whenever they apply, or whenever, it resonates for you. But it feels like there is change that's getting ready to occur, but with this almost like reversed wheel, they're getting ready to like go deeply within. It's like that anger starting to really boil up from their root chakra. They're needing to do this sort of like internal battle within themselves before they are able to bring forth something to you. It feels like, unearthing a lot of truth from deep within themselves, seeing beyond their own masks and illusions. That's the next action in regards to this connection, is like scouring the depths of themselves, rather than just kind of like hovering in this very sort of like surface oriented, everything's fine, I'm cool with how it is, I'm very unbothered. They are actually noticing that they're really bothered by the circumstance. And so, again, that kind of like deep dive within, that kind of the idea of like a tornado that's starting to brew, a hurricane that's starting to brew, but it's within themselves. So they may be getting ready to kind of like descend into a dark night of the soul, as this sort of energy kind of increases in velocity. If they're in a third party situation, it may be, again, that idea of like chaos may start to erupt in the circumstances outward. So something in their like material reality, or if they're single, or, just kind of like casually dating, it's something where it's like the battle with themselves, with kind of what has really been pulling the strings to lead them to this point in their life in regards to this situation. But with this idea of the wheel, it's kind of like bigger energies, larger themes that they're starting to see of like how they've gotten in their own way, tendencies towards self-sabotage, a major chapter that they're getting ready to kind of peel open within themselves and look within. Archangel Michael kind of intervening on this person's behalf to sort of like take the scales off their eyes, their energetic eyes, so that they are able to see themselves more clearly, to confront themselves and these shadowy aspects of themselves where they've been kind of getting in their own way in regards to the situation and their life in general. So the next steps would be kind of that descent within, to start doing that purging, to start doing that healing. That maybe you're on the opposite end of that spectrum. You're starting to come out from that darkness. You're emerging from that personal underworld, and it's almost like this vibrational shift, things that you've been working on within yourself, it may have almost kind of like pulled this person a little bit, pulled your twin flame, energetically speaking, deeper into this ability to kind of like face themselves. So it really ties into the idea of like, never underestimate the work you're doing on yourself, for yourself, and the energetic ripples that it has over to your twin. And everybody has free will. They can choose to just kind of, get irritated about this and then dive even deeper into their mundane reality and whatever the coping mechanisms are. But, for some of your twins, they're going to keep following that, going down that rabbit hole. They're going to follow this carrot that's kind of like leading them deeper into this avenue of self-discovery and really getting some clarity about things that they may have been largely just oblivious to within themselves, tendencies within that can kind of sabotage this situation, and maybe a lot of other circumstances in their life where kind of fear was pulling the strings, and comfort zones, and not wanting to lean into anything. Or take chances or leaps of faith that were, outside of something that was known and predictable. Somebody who may really pride themselves on kind of like, life's an adventure. You have to live life to the fullest. YOLO, you only live once. And yet, when confronted with different kinds of opportunities for something that's a very like unique experience, very outside of the box, they almost don't live up to that same standard that they profess. That's when the fear kicks in, and it's sort of like, okay, I'm up for an adventure, but only within a certain parameter. So they may be really facing a lot of hypocrisy within themselves. It feels like it's starting to just build this agitation within. So next steps are looking themselves in the mirror, kind of like that descent deeply within to do some of that necessary shadow work. So I'm going to get a few messages from their higher self and see what does your twin flame want you to know right now. Okay, and they say timing is off. So again, this is this confirmation that like in terms of next steps is the step internally. It's the step deeper within themselves. That it's kind of that Six of Cups in reverse, that at this present time, their higher self, their ego self is not feeling ready to do anything about this energy of observation, about what they're seeing. And at this point in time, it's almost all they're able to do is look. There's something that needs to be healed and cleared and more deeply understood within themselves to be able to bring forth a different kind of energy to you. Even if they're not seeing anyone else, even if they're available, single at this point in time, it almost feels that it would be just looping around with this wheel in reverse of just kind of the same played out cycles, that in order for something, to really shift in a positive manner, in order for this connection to sort of transcend whatever the experiences have been up to this point in time, or whatever cycle you have found yourselves in, it requires internal transformation within your twin, along the same lines of whatever you've been embarking on within yourself, however you've been sitting with, really looking at this situation, looking very honestly at yourself, however deep or shallow into your own healing work that you have ventured. It's even this idea of kind of you glancing in that direction of sort of peeling your attention away from like actively waiting in place for this person, to get their act together, to figure things out, to return. The slightest way in which you sort of directed that energy within, it's boomeranged off to them as kind of like you need to do the same in your own capacity. And so this idea of kind of like more separation between the two of you, or things not ascending to the next level at this point in time. It's like a not now, but not never kind of energy. Divine timing's at play. There's other things that need to be kind of done at this point in time with you and with your twin, in order to really set the stage and create the proper recipe within both of you to be able to sustain meaningful change together in the future. And they also say, don't be tempted to lower your standards. So this is really them encouraging you to continue on your healing journey, continue ascending, continue, looking very deeply at what has happened in this connection, what this means for you personally, as far as like wounds that may have been played out, things that had been triggered, the healing work you're doing. It can be very, especially at certain points of like a healing journey, there can be almost this panic of like, I don't want to outgrow this person. I don't, it's like a fearfulness of almost like healing and evolving as sort of like a sense of kind of betrayal almost, like, well, if I set my sights elsewhere, how am I holding space? How am I keeping that door open for this individual? And this is really their higher self, telling you to not focus on that. Almost as you raise your standard, you create this elevated kind of like beacon of light. It's a point on the horizon they can then reach toward. They need to go deeply within in order to be able to move kind of further outside of themselves than they had been able to do in the past. And so it's kind of like you need to keep growing, and if kind of like their free will continues to go along with the program, they will meet you further along down the road, but like for you, for your life in general, so that you don't miss out on, the gift of this experience, the difficulties of this experience as kind of that motivator to go within and do some deep core healing that you may not have otherwise been able to access. It may not have been, brought to your attention as like, this is something that needs to be dealt with. So really kind of like utilizing the sort of blessing in disguise of a situation like this, and separation and sort of all the heaviness that it comes with, to your best advantage, trusting that if it's meant to be in the time and manner accordingly, that it will happen for the two of you further down the road. But this person, definitely your twin, needs to go in and needs to kind of like look at and heal some of these aspects within themselves first. And they also say, I know you think I won't follow through, but I will. So this could be something where there's a lot that needs to be changed. You may be kind of like giving up hope. It may have been a long time since, you went into separation with one another. All of the impressions that they're giving you on the surface is that they're very unbothered with the situation as it is. They're very happy in their current existence. This may be somebody who's very stubborn in general, very slow to change, very resistant to change. And it's really their higher self letting you know that there's, again, this kind of like energetic pressure. There's this storm that is building within them, where they've seen something has kind of like come into clarity. It's come into their awareness. They can't just shut their eyes to it at this point in time. It's a lot of frustration that's building, but it's also unknown as far as what will happen on the other side of that. How deeply into that process will they go? What will become of them on the other side of that? But there's definitely, almost like without them trying, they're already starting to begin this descent within. It's like every day that they're starting to look at this situation from this different perspective, or these memories are coming up and it's a very different reaction inside. They're almost feeling very betrayed or very overpowered by wounded aspects within themselves, and starting this journey of kind of looking around and saying, what is this within me that has been this controlling factor that has kind of brought me to this place in my life right now, by free will, but almost like against their will, is kind of how this energy feels at this point in time. It's like resentful. It's trying to find the culprit. It's trying to find the person to blame for all of this, and realizing more and more each day that finger of blame just keeps pointing right back at them. They just keep being confronted with themselves in that mirror. And it's a first step, although there may be, many other steps that are necessary before they kind of come out of this, but it feels like a crucial first step of looking at something, addressing something, acknowledging something on a very like conscious level. These aren't just fleeting thoughts. These are very like conscious and deliberate, attentions that are directed at this. And it's a turning point. It's a start for something different in the situation to unfold. And they also say we are still connected. So this is that confirmation of like the work you're doing within yourself. It has an energetic boomerang effect upon your twin. And so, keep growing, keep doing the healing work for you first and foremost. That is the best and only way to implement true change, is if you are, motivated to do that for your highest good, for your own well-being, to, make the most of your earthly experience, to move toward that abundance, not in the essence sense of, I'm going to do this so it calls my twin back in, but you really just have to like choose yourself over sort of like waiting on somebody else to change and to choose the situation. But with that, when you choose yourself, when you start to do that work, when you accomplish milestones as you're moving along this path, inside yourself, outside, back in, healing is like an onion. It happens in layers. It's like a spiral. We keep revisiting things, like your twin, looking at things from different perspectives, with different eyes, with a different lens at different sort of periods along our journey. And as you continue to surrender and move through that flow, be very fearless in this process. Your accomplishments send the beacon to your twin of like, hey, you need to start addressing this. That's where free will comes in though, and it's really tricky. They can, hear the call. Those kind of like reminders can be so glaring, so frustrating, that anger builds, that pressure builds, and it's almost like, I'm going to do something about this. And they step however deeply in they are going to. Some only sort of tiptoe in. Others will start to go really deeply, and they'll unearth things, and they'll peel back these layers, and real work starts to happen. And it's something where, don't be surprised at what is possible. Like, never say never in this circumstance, but at the same time, don't actively wait in place, because as difficult as it is to heal, and you would know that through your personal experience, for somebody who has been operating in just kind of like a lot of energy of resistance, projecting outward, that's an even more difficult process of confronting, because they didn't surrender to this initially. They've been kind of moving in the other way, so it's sort of needing to make up for like lost time in a way. It's possible, but it's just they're needing to fast track. It may be very intense. They're being confronted with a lot because they're being pulled energetically. As you raise your vibration, they are being very much made aware on an energetic level of like change that needs to happen, and they have the choice to continue to resist that or to start to do that work within. And it's for those individuals, that kind of like take those steps that are very, they cultivate this energy of feeling the fear and moving through it anyway, feeling that anger and utilizing that as a force to make changes for themselves in a proactive way. That's where miracles happen. That's where the breakthrough happens. But for change in the circumstance to occur, it really does require two people to change internally, individually, within themselves, for themselves, first and foremost. So I'm going to get a little bit of guidance for you and then close it out with some initials. Okay, so we have remember your past, but stay present. Awaken Lemuria. So this is that confirmation for you to continue on your fearless inventory within, congratulating yourself for how far you've come, remembering the seeds of potential in the situation, the love, the connection that you feel for your twin, but continuing to commit to your own personal growth journey, your own abundance journey, your own healing and wellness journey. That is the best way that you can serve this connection, is to be that living example, to remember kind of the larger purpose of a twin flame experience. Yes, love and romance are part of that equation, but it's about so much more. We come into these experiences and we are affected so profoundly and awakened on a soul level, not just to experience romantic partnership, but to really stir something within ourselves. It's first and foremost an experience. It's an interaction for deep personal awakening, growth, and ascension, to actively raise our vibrations as individuals on this planet here and now, to set out a beacon of, a higher way of being, transcending obstacles of the soul, of the self in very profound ways. And that can happen quietly or loudly. That is the purpose, first and foremost, of a twin flame experience. It's two people working in tandem with one another in this process. Each kind of step that each individual takes, it helps to raise that collective vibration. So, at times where you're feeling very just like stuck, you're feeling very lonely, you may even be picking up and sensing a lot of this kind of like heaviness or storminess within your twin, redirect that focus on self. Remember why you came here. Try to remember kind of the bigger picture of this circumstance and situation. You serve the connection best by serving yourself and your own healing needs. What are you being confronted with? What limitations within self and the world around you are you really being presented with as barriers that are not just meant to sort of thwart you, but that you're meant to sort of find a way around or through, to transcend as deeply and as profoundly as you possibly can. And by really fulfilling that, by continuing to commit to that aspect of self and self-growth, it sends that beacon out to your twin, and it encourages them, like, the path might be different. It might be a lonely road, but you're not alone in this process. Like, on the other side of facing those aspects of fear and transcending those elements of self, there is that kind of access to that higher vibration, that higher awareness, that higher emanation of oneself in the earthly experience. So, keep doing what you're doing. Stay very present in sort of whatever's really triggering you, whatever's coming up for growth, whatever you're being called to really focus on and cultivate for yourself, whatever ways you have already redirected your focus in a sense, a big way or a small way, off of this twin flame connection. Keep focusing on that. Keep growing and kind of like reaching better for yourself, trusting that you're an example in ways that you might not understand or appreciate, or that your twin might not be acknowledging, or they're not even able to really kind of put to words in a logical way. But energetically speaking, just as much as you're picking up on the heaviness from them, they're also picking up on the levity that you achieve within yourself as well. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got G, M, Z, U, Q, D, A, Y, C, V, and P. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot, where I do pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to different kinds of subjects, such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. There's a link in the description box, as well as in the channel section of my page for my second channel. And I thank you for your support over there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the Larvikite. So I'm going to start by taking a look at what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you and the connection right now. Where are they at energetically? Okay, we've got the Eight of Wands in the reverse, and that's fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Four of Wands in reverse, so more fire energy. King of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Six of Wands, so more fire energy. Throat chakra, the angels are helping you lovingly speak your truth. And crown chakra, pay attention to your ideas, as they are messages of true divine guidance sent in answer to your prayers. So this throat chakra card came up in group 1. If you felt drawn to watch that group, there may be additional messages for you there as well. But it feels like for this group, communication is the main focus at this point in time. This may be something where your twin is strategizing, breaking the ice between you, trying to kind of come to grips with and to really understand the deeper sort of layers of the connection, the nature of the connection. If you find yourself in a period of no contact or separation, it feels like they're thinking a lot with this King of Swords, deep in thought about this connection. Replaying the events of the past, trying to really retrace their steps, feeling very connected to you still across the ether, across, energetically speaking, this idea of like crown chakra and throat chakra, a lot of telepathy happening, a lot of dreams, a lot of downloads, a lot of visions that they may be getting, past life visions. It's a sense that distance has not alleviated the feeling of energetic connection to you, and that this is like centrally their focus at this point in time. They may be doing a lot of research, seeing a lot of like signs and synchronicities, but with the idea of like Four of Wands, the 1111 card, the twin flame card in reverse, they're very much at a loss of like how to define this connection. They may be starting to really, again, like do research on these things. They may be almost at the brink of kind of like coming across twin flame information, soulmate information, something that's going to be like that breakthrough, that aha moment, almost like spirit sort of like leading them further along the path. They may be starting kind of from the ground up with their spiritual knowledge, creating a spiritual database for themselves. The idea of the Eight of Wands in reverse, a lot of it being like outside of their depth. They're really having to like go to square one in order to understand this. They may be confronted with like a lot of spiritually advanced concepts that could be so outside of the box for somebody who's typically sort of like a logical person, a very practical person. Their logical mind, their ego mind may be sort of like putting up a huge defense mechanism against kind of this more, these metaphysical concepts. The idea of the soul, of destiny and soul connections. Part of it is like it's resonating with them, what they're coming across at this point in time. But then the practical mind is like, well, there's no proof of this, especially if it's like past life visions, this kind of image here on the crown chakra. It's reminding me of like Atlantis almost. So that might resonate with some of you, or even Lemuria may resonate with some of you. Just these kind of like aquatic worlds of the past, and concepts about that, or memories of lifetimes you shared in these places that feel so real. It feels so visceral to this person, and they're doing this research. They're seeing all this stuff. It's coming up for them. A lot of angel numbers, a lot of signs, a lot of synchronicities, and it's feeling good. It's piquing their curiosity. They're not just kind of like taking in some of these concepts and shutting the door to it and saying, well, that doesn't apply. It doesn't fit. I don't resonate with that. I don't want to know anymore. They're very curious. They're like peering deeper and deeper into the void, looking deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole. But along comes the logical mind, this kind of like King of Swords, this imposing gatekeeper. It's like, no, well, that's not scientifically provable. That's not, the masses don't believe about that. That's not something that you're going to read about in the newspaper. That's so outside of the box. That's so just like wishy-washy. It's just sort of like the fly in the ointment almost is kind of what their ego mind is acting as at this point in time. But it feels to be, it's like this lone voice, this of contention, basically, that is just sort of, it's slowing their progress, which may be very necessary, because it feels like a lot of information that they're starting to take in. It's a lot of different ways of trying to explain or to understand this energetic connection between the two of you, that it's almost like this ego is serving a very good function to protect them from like overload, so that they can successfully and victoriously kind of like digest little sort of like spoonfuls of all of this in bite-sized chunks. They are expanding their spiritual knowledge, still feeling at a loss of like how to completely describe these things, even if they've come across like twin flame concepts. They may have only read like one article on this. They may have watched like one or two videos, something where it's just, it's hitting these cores of resonance on a surface level, but every twin flame situation obviously is different. And although there's like, okay, top 5 signs that you met your twin flame, and people try to like make it into just a very categorical box, like it's this or nothing. In reality, it's so far outside of the box from that. It really is individuated for each twin flame couple. There are certain things that kind of like are congruent for everyone or for a lot of people, but it's not a one size fits all experience. It's next level, it's higher level for a reason. It cannot be contained. It's a very expansive experience, so it therefore cannot be defined and neatly packaged into something. So rather than just sort of like one approach, it's actually more of a combination of a lot of different sort of thoughts and theories, coupled with your own sort of personal experience with it as the true sort of testament to whatever the connection is or isn't, and how you are experiencing it very individually. It's also something that like changes with time. So the longer that you are, aware of yourself as a twin flame, as you walk that road of the twin flame journey, the twin flame path, the twin flame experience, it evolves as you evolve. And so this is something where it feels like your twin is starting to just kind of like walk that road, and they may be just at kind of those surface level introductory kind of definitions. This actually may be something that you're very happy about, that they're finally taking this step. This could be somebody that again was just kind of like dismissing all of it. This could have caused them to run from the connection in the past, was the intensity, the otherness of it, all of these kind of like spiritual things, activations and downloads and awakenings. It's just something that was not in their comfort zone whatsoever, but it's persisted. This process has continued. It's been activated, and it has continued to grow and manifest through the distance between the two of you, whether that's actual no contact, or just if they've kind of emotionally pulled back and tried to put up some kind of wall or barrier, keep it to pleasantries, keep it to surface level things. It's kind of like behind closed doors, without wanting to make this kind of known or spoken, maybe to anybody else, maybe to you. It's they're even still kind of struggling with this themselves, as far as like suspending their disbelief and leaning into this, that yes, this very kind of like unconventional, largely unexplainable, atypical experience is happening for them. That these concepts, these theories, these experiences, these past life memories, they are just as real as what is happening in their material reality in the here and now. So this feels like something where your twin's like consciousness is being stretched. It's being, the eyes are being opened more widely, and they feel very enthusiastic about this. Again, the ego is really performing this function of just so their brain doesn't get fried almost with all of this information, being just too much, and like missing the important kind of concepts. It's like the ego's allowing them to fully digest these sort of bite-sized bits. So they are in this energy of kind of like venturing further, peeking behind the curtain, taking that in, sitting just a little bit longer, gradually, sort of like day by day, with how they are understanding this. They may not be in the point of ready to kind of like bring forth communication, break the ice between you, but their attention is definitely on this situation. They're doing research, or they're not just kind of like dismissing as, oh, that was just a coincidence, oh, that was just a weird thought, oh, that was just a weird dream, whatever that might look like in connection with this. They're starting to dig a little bit deeper. They're starting to do that research. They're starting to kind of entertain the other possibility of like, well, what if there is something to this? What if this isn't just all in my imagination? What if I'm still feeling this person and experiencing the intensity of these like signs and these downloads and these dreams and these, whatever that is that comes through? What if there's something of significance to this? Like that it keeps happening. I might as well look. I might as well start investigating. I might as well see what all kind of the fuss is about. Or if I can find any information. Am I alone in this? Are there other people? And it's almost like they're feeling really good. They may be in a sense forming community. It doesn't feel like they're necessarily participating in that, but just reading and observing that they're not they're not alone in this experience and kind of the spiritual aspects of it. And it feels to be something that, it's that even is resonating with them, that it might not be, the masses are totally on board with this and everybody has this experience, but it's more than just the feeling of isolation and alienation that they may have really experienced in the past that caused them to be like, I don't want to touch this. I'm kind of skeptical and leery about this. Now they're like, all right, well, I'm not the only one that's having this happen. I can't possibly be the only one. And it's causing them to sort of be in a questing energy currently. So I'm going to take a look now and see what some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that your twin flame is confronting right now, either in terms of the connection itself or maybe just in their life in general. Okay, so we've got gifts, dominance, and release. So this gifts is really talking about some psychic gifts, some spiritual gifts, downloads, telepathy, their intuition, maybe like claircognizance, clairvoyance, all these different things, these faculties that are coming online. They feel to be, it's something where it's at least one thing. It's like a multiplicity of gifts that as much as they have maybe activated in you, the intensity of them has increased in you. It's increased in your twin as well. And this could be what's leading them down this rabbit hole of like needing to research. They can't turn this off anymore. It's like too many weird things happening all at once. It's too in their face to be able to ignore anymore. But it's almost like they're faced with so much information, so much like conflicting information, so many different opinions, maybe not even knowing necessarily with this idea of like the communication in reverse, like the Eight of Wands, how to describe this. They're kind of struggling, with throat chakra, sort of like who to ask, how to Google this, where to look, what door to open, what does this even mean, how to define this. And so it's being challenged with kind of almost picking up all these pieces, kind of taking like a fast track course, getting their sort of like knowledge of this up to speed, learning to more deeply understand and kind of like work with this aspect of themselves, these gifts that are just heightening, as much as you're feeling ascension symptoms, your gifts are increasing, it's the intuition's becoming more on point. You're feeling at your twin energetically, a lot of dreams, a lot of downloads, a lot of past life visions. You can't turn that off again once it's been activated through a twin flame experience, through an activation in that sense. And so rather than just trying to kind of ignore this clutter, it feels like it's almost sort of a struggle at this point in time, or it's a big to-do list, it's a task list, because also with this dominance, they're trying to really sort of, maintain their status quo, maintain their ordinary life. They may be having to be very like hush about this for fear of being like judged or ridiculed by people around them, people who might not understand this part of themselves, kind of like trying to maintain their 3D reality, their duties and obligations, their 9-to-5 job, the material world that they've created for themselves. And then there's also this kind of like spiritual component. So a bit of struggle of like making time for that. It feels like they almost may be getting kind of really absorbed in this, and almost like hours go by. It's all night, and then before they know it, it's like, oh, I got to go to bed. I'm going to be late for work the next day. And they've just been, absorbed in like taking in all this information. And it's something where it feels like the biggest kind of challenge is that struggle to not just keep diving down that rabbit hole. It's definitely an energy of enthusiasm, but something that's almost kind of just, there's a level of secrecy on that, like a lot of effort that needs to be put into making sure that they don't talk about this with other people, that they don't allow this to too deeply sort of like interrupt their day-to-day reality, to make sure they're still sort of tending to those duties and obligations, but in also having this element of like expansion within themselves. This idea of release is talking about kind of like as their consciousness is being stretched, it might be something that's kind of like stretching the limits of their belief systems in some way. Those beliefs might be challenged. This could be things of like a religious nature that are very much challenged by concepts of spirituality. This could be something having to do with the way that they were raised, experiences of love that they've had, ideas that they have about the nature of existence. Maybe they had no ideas about any of that. And so it's this idea of kind of like growing pains. Like it's taking in so much that there's almost like these periods of overwhelm that happen. It's too much too quickly. Their mind is like, feels like their mind is blown on a regular basis, has been at least more than once, with maybe something that has come through like in a prophetic dream, and then that's unfolded in their day-to-day reality at some point. Some kind of like a sign or a synchronicity that they look that up, and it kind of just leads to all these other things that connect a lot of dots for them as far as experiences they've had growing up, or just different kind of like concepts and traditions and things they're really being exposed to. It's a struggle to maintain their kind of like linear view of reality with this kind of otherness, this formlessness that is wanting to really come in and sort of like reshape that. So again, this idea of growing spiritually, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's like a tight squeeze in their material reality, the life that they've built for themselves up to this point in time. It's becoming more and more difficult not to just kind of like talk about this with other people, not to reveal this part of themselves, maybe even like not to reach out to you and discuss these things. Because especially if they're at the point where they've even maybe come across information about soul connections, if they're at that part of their research, it almost feels that there's a lot of excitement there. And it might be something where it's like, okay, I want to reach out. I want to talk about this. I'm seeing this from a different perspective now, like wanting to compare notes almost. If they get like dreams or weird sort of synchronicities, almost thinking, is that person feeling it too? Is this person who maybe I'm going to define now is my twin flame, or maybe they're my soulmate, whatever they are? Like, is this just something singular with me? Or are they feeling it too? Like, is this real? Did this really happen? Is this really occurring? And they're having to like, they're holding themselves back from that, from opening those lines of communication. Maybe trying to just gather more information. They're not totally comfortable with this. It's like new territory in a sense, and there's a sense of disbelief. Like they don't know if they can fully trust it yet. So a bit of that kind of like ego mind, that lone voice in the back of the stadium that's just kind of like booing them on, while the rest of them is congratulating this process. Is really excited about this growth, but then there's part of them that is sort of like tethering them, like, don't get too into this, it's too weird, it's not real, it's like, how's this going to fit in with the world that you've created for yourself? All of these kind of like naysayer aspects of them, that it's really a struggle to kind of like mute that out or shush that in order to dive more deeply into this. So in terms of like obstacles, this really feels like these are actually not the worst kind of obstacles that could come up for somebody. And this is just at this particular time, and there may be different things that they've confronted in the past or that they might in the future. But at this point in time, it's almost like the biggest obstacle is dominating themselves, holding themselves back from just diving all in, just taking in too much, like overdosing on spirituality or this very kind of like new sort of concept, this new sort of aspect of self, that they're very excited about that, but it's trying to like maintain some degree of like tact, measurement, trying to keep themselves very grounded in reality while also sort of like plunging into this otherness as well. So I'm going to get a few messages from their higher self, and let's see, what does your twin flame want you to know right now? Okay, and they say mirror games. Yeah, so this is definitely like seeing things from another vantage point. It's bringing to mind the idea of like Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. They are diving deep. They have gone down that rabbit hole. Any sort of efforts that they're making, anything you're seeing like on social media, they may be trying like really hard just to make sure that everything looks normal, nothing's wrong, nothing has changed. They're still just kind of participating in their day-to-day reality, and it's almost like secret agent kind of like energy here, like this double life. There's this other part of them that's just taking in and very excited about all of these kind of like new concepts, these new skills and abilities that they have within themselves. There's this part of them that is just very much like expanding their range way outside of the box from whatever had been normal, from whatever had been their focus, from whatever they had like built for themselves, from whatever other people around them are focused on or doing. So there's this element where they're having to really put up this front for others to, they're not at the place of being ready to live out loud about this. It's like cultivating or discovering their authenticity within, but projecting something very different for the world to see, trying really hard not to let anyone see kind of beneath the cracks or behind the seams, behind the curtain. It's kind of like what's really going on within them. So it's this idea of like whatever they're presenting or projecting at this point, it is again just really motivated in terms of like holding up appearances at this point in time. But it's almost an illusion. There's something else very different that's going on behind closed doors and within themselves at this point. And they also say you are seeing the truth. So again, a confirmation right there of they're doing research, they're expanding their mind, they're expanding their perception. They are seeing the signs. They are, experiencing these aspects of ascension in a very similar way as you are. They may be a few steps behind you, kind of needing to do some catch-up work, needing to like really start from square one. But this is something where they're not ignoring this anymore. They're seeking out truth. They're seeking out meaning and explanation finally, or for the first time. And they also say, I'm clearing my karma. So this is tying into the idea of like releasing kind of karma and karmic ties in the sense of, maybe things that they were really templated with through their culture, through their religion, through their upbringing, a certain worldview, a certain perception of themselves, the nature of reality, things that do not fit this expansion, this access within themselves, this part of themselves that is really awakening and that has come online and that they're starting to explore and experiment with and to really embrace and to try to understand and bring into the fold of who they are. So moving, almost like not breaking out of the karmic cycles, but kind of expanding within these karmic bubbles. It's becoming very tight, a very tight squeeze for them to, continue to kind of like put on the front, put up these little mirror games almost, so that other people are seeing a projection of how they have been moving through the world up to this point in time, because they don't feel ready to kind of like come out from behind that, to speak more truth about what they're doing very internally and very quietly within. And they also say spiritual contracts, attracting your soul family. So this can again be that confirmation of like research that they're doing, creating even just, in an observing kind of a way, linking up with community, finding people that they resonate with that are, speaking about these things, spiritual topics. Maybe they are even, like participating in comment sections of videos or discussion boards or forums, something where there's almost like this work within, it's drawing them in the direction of different kinds of people. A lot of people, or most people in their reality, as is often the case when we awaken, and especially on a twin flame journey, it's very rare to have like, other people in your reality that are also on that twin flame journey, especially at first, but it's something where it challenges us to kind of like grow beyond those boundaries of whatever normal has been, whatever our environment has been, to be that kind of like trailblazer that sort of like steps away from the herd in a sense. Sometimes that's an inspiration to others within, our previous kind of like environment to be curious and to follow suit, but often it's sort of like breaking trail in order to realign with other people, that resonate with this more like awakened version of ourselves further down the road. So this feels to be what's happening with your twin, where they're starting to really not even just kind of, it doesn't feel like they're at the point of like questioning the nature of relationships that they have, like people that they interact with. There's just a sense of like, these people won't understand, so I can't let them in on this. But the more they're kind of like diving in, asking those questions, broadening that understanding within themselves, it's putting them in the path. It's causing them to gravitate toward and to magnetize in people that they can be open with this version of themselves about. People that will kind of have similar experiences where they're not feeling so alone in this process, where it's making them more and more comfortable to kind of dive a little bit deeper, to expand a little bit more beyond the parameters of their perception of self, the nature of reality, and how they've been kind of dealing with and interpreting this connection with you. So I'm going to get some guidance, and then I will get some initials to close it out. Okay, we have hold your wisdom close, guardian of the sacred vessel. So this is really the encouragement for you to continue on your path of growth and expansion of your spiritual knowledge, your understanding of the twin flame experience. This idea of like hold your wisdom close is really indicating that for some of you, you may need to kind of break away from traditional or standard information or definitions of what your soul connection is, what those kind of like primary or all-encompassing signs are, that very like black and white definition. It may be time for you to sort of like branch out and really put your own individuated flavor or experience into how you are holding this concept within yourself. It feels that you and your twin are really on this parallel path right now of expanding your wisdom, expanding your knowledge, expanding your understanding of self, the meaning of this journey, the meaning of who you are, your process of growth and awakening. And so, by continuing to focus on that, remaining curious, remaining open, seeking out community, participating in community, taking in that information, contributing to others if this is something that you feel called to do at this stage of your journey. It helps you to kind of like remain in tandem energetically with your twin, who is also in this process of embarking. It may be something that for some of you who have been very kind of like vocal about this, maybe you put things out about spirituality on your social media. Maybe some of you have a channel, you have a blog, you have a podcast, whatever that is. It's quite possible that your twin is actually watching that, is listening to that, is learning from that, is finally those concepts are kind of like registering, or they're really creating that spiritual basis within themselves to what might have just been above their head, outside of the box. It's starting to really resonate. They're able to kind of understand that in a way. It's touching them on a different and deeper level within self. So if that's the case, continue to put that out there. Continue to do what you're doing in the knowledge that, you're actualizing your own kind of like truth and authenticity. You're helping other people. And for a lot of you, you're also helping your twin, whether you know it or not. They may be one of those kind of flies on the wall, the silent observer, the subscriber, the fan, the follower, whatever that is, but not yet ready to kind of like speak these things about you directly. Maybe they have a fake account. Maybe they are interacting somewhat from, an avatar or an alias, but, it feels like the genuine person, the real McCoy, is most comfortable just kind of, again, with this idea of like mirror games, the illusion at this point in time, but really trusting in like the expansion and depth of the knowledge and understanding that you have of yourself, of this experience, what this entails, your kind of like place in the world, what this all means to you, that this is something that you're both kind of like walking side by side, even if there's silence and distance, even if you haven't like openly discussed this yet. It definitely feels for a lot of you, it's this path that's going to like divergent roads are going to converge together along this vein, along this kind of like stream of thought. You need your twin to kind of like pick up the pace, pick up the pieces, gather that information for themselves, come to this knowledge and awareness for themselves very organically, to be able to meet you at the level that you are, to be able to connect more deeply beyond the surface, beyond just, kind of like the mundane and the routine and ordinary, but to be able to access and really kind of like bring into the fullest capacity this higher level potential between the two of you. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got I, X, V, B, W, C, J, L, G, A, U, and R. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there is a little different from here. I do pick-a-cards and general energy readings, but it is related to, or they are related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the blue Calcite. Okay, so I'm going to start by looking at what are your twin flames' thoughts and feelings about you and the connection right now, what's going on with them energetically. Okay, so we have the Eight of Pentacles, which is Earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Six of Swords in reverse, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Three of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Ace of Pentacles, so more earth energy. Base chakra, choose only positive thoughts to describe your home, career, and finances as your words determine your outcome. And ear chakras, notice messages that appear as sounds, music, and words from both external sources and within your mind. These messages are real answers to your prayers. So this energy here really speaks to some kind of fundamental up-leveling that your twin is focused on implementing into their life. This is really taking decisive and planned action to bring dreams, maybe dreams deferred in the past, or things that they have been thinking about for some time that maybe need to be changed or need to be like brought in or enhanced in their life down into the material reality. This idea here with the Six of Swords in reverse, it ties into this element of kind of like learning to accept the things that they cannot change. So this may have to do with sort of like breaking away from certain traditions, certain relationships that they are in, expectations maybe of things changing within current dynamics or environments. And instead of just kind of pushing against these obstacles, trying to get people to change. Maybe this has to do with like friendships, or if they're in another romantic connection, and that they have kind of experienced some difficulties with that partner, or it's a situation where there's a lot of kind of like tension and turmoil where they're almost needing to, just kind of like focus on work or other things to avoid like being at home, being in that domestic environment. They feel to be at a point of like planning some escape, planning a way out of that situation, almost like resolving themselves to, this is getting me nowhere, repeating these same actions, trying to really fix or to preserve, or even just, again, like avoid being at home because it's just too, it's stressful, it's toxic, it's, two people that maybe are not a true energetic match for one another. They're not resonating. They don't hold the same kind of like long-term values and goals. They've grown apart from one another. And so rather than kind of just avoiding that in a large sense, spending time elsewhere, maybe like hiding out in the garage, hiding out in an office, or like a home office, or just kind of like hiding out behind playing video games, just whatever that looks like in a way, hiding out behind the computer screen as a way to avoid kind of interacting with this other person. It's almost this energy of like, enough is enough. This isn't getting me anywhere. This is not satisfying. It's a sense that this is really specific. This isn't going to apply to everybody, but it feels like for a handful of people that it's like, I'm tired of hiding in my own home, or feeling that I don't want to go home, or that I have to kind of like hide parts of myself in order to maintain the status quo. This is somebody who is no longer concerned with rocking the boat here with the Six of Swords, and kind of like distancing themselves, disconnecting themselves from the idea of like investing in a long-term sense, or investing further in a particular circumstance or situation. This may even have to do, if it's not in relation to like a third-party connection or relationship, this can tie into sort of like a job that pays the bills, but it doesn't like feed their soul. It's something that they might be good at, but it's just they're almost like asking themselves, what's the purpose? What's the meaning of this? They may be selling themselves short. There's no kind of like creativity to that. It might be something that they've reached their maximum potential. They've kind of like maxed out the promotions. It's, there's not a whole lot of like room for growth and elevation. It may be something that, maybe it's a family business, for example, something that they're doing just out of obligation, something they told themselves would just be a temporary circumstance or situation, and it's become more permanent. Maybe this has to do with even like somebody that they may have living in their house that is not a romantic relationship. This could be somebody, like a family member, a friend that's like a couch surfer, for example. Or maybe they are the one that was kind of in this transitional period, and they've been in a place a little too long that they told themselves was just supposed to be temporary. Either somebody's outstayed their welcome, or they're feeling they've outstayed their welcome. They are no longer kind of like comfortable with whatever that dynamic looks like. It's going to be different for everyone, but it's a plan of action that's being put into place to like make different changes, plant new seeds of potential, work on something else, move in another direction, literally. Hearing hit the open road. So for some people, this could be, where your twin is planning some kind of like traveling, something, maybe they're needing to find themselves in a certain way. They're needing to like get out of their current environment, get out of a hometown, get out of a current sort of like circumstance. They're hearing the call. They're seeing a lot of signs, something that is telling them that there's something more in life than whatever it is they have settled for at this point in time, or whatever that kind of routine or rut is that they find themselves in. This base chakra energy is almost like something that was very comfortable. It's becoming increasingly uncomfortable. It might be, very stable, very predictable. It's very ordinary. They know what to expect in that circumstance, but it's almost just like this call for something more. And it doesn't feel to be something. For some people, I'm hearing the phrase, the 7-year itch. So for some people, this could be like a long-term partnership that they are saying, I don't want to, it's at this crucial kind of like crossroads. Are we going to continue on in this manner? Or is it best to kind of like move in another direction? And it feels like, for some of you, that this is something where they're making that decision. I don't want to invest in this any further. I don't want to invest another 7 years of my life in this, or whatever that looks like. Something to where it's like they've really given something a chance. They've really tried at something. Maybe it's a career path. Maybe it's just living a life in general, or going through all the motions of what people had made them believe was kind of expected of them. Their culture had made them believe this. Their family had made them believe this. Societal pressure. They themselves were kind of, trying to live up to a certain sort of idea of success, and they may have achieved that to a certain degree, but it's just, there's a hunger for something more. There's a part of themselves, some untapped potential, some authenticity, or even just like a higher calling and purpose that they're being urge to sort of direct their attentions toward. This may even have to do, for some of you, it's almost like a cause or something that is really sparking kind of this humanitarian aspect within self, maybe even wanting to get involved in humanitarian work, wanting to contribute, wanting to give back, wanting to do something with their time on this planet that is meaningful, that helps others or helps the world to be a better place. And it's something that they may have kind of made excuses about not doing that. It may require uprooting. It may require like a substantial pay, decrease in a sense. It may involve kind of like working with nonprofits or just starting from the ground up, basically. And this could be something that they had been avoiding this change, or had, just been deferring, or sort of like stuffing away whatever this calling was, because of those creature comforts, because of those expectations, but it's almost like no more. They're feeling very compelled in another direction. So as this relates to the idea of, the twin flame experience, this can definitely tie into somebody who, is starting to go through like an existential crisis. They're really starting to question themselves. It may be something where, their dark night of the soul is just kind of like quiet desperation. It's something where they could continue on this way, but there's a part of their soul that is just like pulling them in another direction, maybe through this kind of like breaking point, breaking away from what is known or comfortable. That is where the true like ascension really starts to take place. But it's almost like their growth has maxed out in the environment that they are in. They're feeling very like stifled, very unfulfilled on a deep level, not even a material level. It's at this soul level. It's like this deep inner urge for something more. So for a lot of you, getting ready to kind of like make those changes, making those plans and preparations to break away from something they've been invested in a long term. They're very heavily invested in that, and it's almost like willing to just kind of put this all aside and start from scratch. It's something that they may be having to kind of like move in silence, not kind of share this with anyone. It's plans that are being put in place. Again, that idea of like an escape plan, an escape route that's being mapped out, where it's just kind of like the note is left, the notice is given, something where they feel that they might be getting a lot of pushback, where it's really just striking out on their own down a very kind of like uncharted path, a very lonely path. Could even just be the path of deep sort of exploration of self. What's the meaning of their life? What's the meaning of kind of how they're moving through the world? So some sort of an awakening taking place, but it feels to be almost like a soft awakening is happening, where they're looking around them, and they're sensing how stale their life has become, and that it's not just, well, I better just sit and enjoy it. I better just be grateful for this. This is all there is. There's almost something that's piqued their interest, this kind of like urge, or this need to kind of like wiggle out of that, because there's something more. There's an instinct or an inclination, or something's caught their eye of just a different way of doing and being, a different possibility than what they had just been sort of settling for, like a routine they had just kind of gotten very complacent in. So I'm going to look at some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they are dealing with at this point in time, either relating to these energies, which again, it feels like this is very like personal energy. So in terms of how that, to kind of go back to this in terms of how that relates to, the twin flame connection, this may have to do with like changes that you've made to step and grow outside of your comfort zone. This has sent some kind of an energetic reverberation to your twin, where now they're starting to question. They're starting to have that kind of like urge to expand, that urge to, step into something more. And it feels like they don't even, with this idea of like the ear chakra and she's sleeping on this card, that it's very unconscious. They're not able to kind of trace that back to where it's coming from. It's almost just, it's like an idea that just sort of comes to them. And they just know they have to move. They know something has to change, but they don't feel to be they're almost just so wrapped up in their material circumstances that getting out of that is as far as they're able at this point to kind of direct those attentions. So if you find yourself in a no contact with your twin, then they may still just be sort of, going through the motions, holding on to whatever that status quo is, whatever that job was, or whatever that other relationship was, whatever they had kind of settled into after they had turned away from the connection with you. And this is not the energy of, I made the wrong choice, I want to move in another direction. This is just aside from that element of choice, aside from, the dynamic with you, it's a sense of that they're not a proper fit for their environment. And it almost feels that this is something where, this is like organic change that is being motivated for them, independent of the pressure, actual or perceived, that they had experienced in the past to make a choice to move towards you, to forfeit some kind of life in order to move towards you. It's like they're still back around at this sort of choice. They're still coming. It's almost like aligning with fate or destiny in a sense. They're being pushed in that direction, but very gently. This is almost just this sense of discomfort, like I got to get out of this space. So thoughts about sort of like reconnecting or moving deeper into the situation with you don't feel to be at the forefront of their attention at this point in time. It's almost like something. It's a skin that they've grown beyond, like a skin of a life they've created for themselves, that just, they don't fit into this anymore. It doesn't resonate with them. They need out. They're thirsting for growth in other ways. So what are some of these blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they are dealing with right now? Okay, we've got release, scavenge, and mimicry. So this idea of mimicry is really tying in with this idea of they feel like an imposter in the current life that they are living. They're feeling like they have to hide in their own home, basically. It feels very false, very artificial, the life that they're living. It's something where they're being directly challenged with kind of almost the energy of like keeping up with the Joneses, and they may have done that very effectively. But with the idea of scavenger, it's satisfying on an outside sense, but it's something that there's not a lot of substance to that. There's an evaporating motivation to continue on in this way. There's some kind of authenticity within them that wants to kind of break free. It may be a bit of sort of like fear, though, of having these difficult conversations, fear of releasing the creature comforts, a fear of lack, a fear of having to start over, maybe like a kind of a poverty mindset. There's a lack almost of confidence within themselves to begin again, or this urge to kind of move in another direction, and they're not entirely certain if that's reliable within themselves. Like, is it worth it to give up all this stability, this comfort, this thing, this circumstance, this situation, this job, this relationship, that I've got that all figured out. I know the ground rules. All I have to do is just kind of like go through the motions, just show up, just be a warm body in this situation. Nothing further is required of me. And that is something that can be done very well. And so to release that in the interest of seeking more substance in terms of the quality of life they're living overall, answering some call within themselves just for a different, wanting to be almost like more enthusiastic in the life they're living. It feels like something where they've moved into a very gray existence. It's just a very dull existence. They're just going through the motions, kind of just like going to work, coming home, hanging out in the garage, playing the video games, eating the dinner, going to bed, getting back up, going back to work. And it's this repeating cycle over and over again, to where they're really starting to question, like, what's the meaning of this? It's a lack of meaning in their life at this point in time, a bit of an existential crisis where they feel very much like a phony, or that they've been leading an artificial life at this point in time. And yet they're struggling with taking that plunge, knowing even what direction to move in. A struggle almost to kind of make these plans for release. Maybe it's something where it's not so easy to just walk away. There may be sort of like legal contracts, some sort of sense of duty and obligation. If it's a long-term job that they're leaving, they can't just walk off the job. It's like they want to, keep a good reference. They need to have something to move towards. If it's a long-term relationship, or even like a marriage, there's legal paperwork that's involved. There's dividing of assets. It's not just as simple as like one day that's done and over with. And so it feels to be something that the mechanics of all of that feel to be their major struggle at this point in time. A lack of meaning in their current life and their current environment, even if they're very successful. That's the other thing. This doesn't have to be somebody who's just kind of scraping by. They may be very successful, very stable, very rooted and grounded with that base chakra in this life that they're living. And yet there's a sense of there's got to be something more to life than this. And kind of a sense too of like they've done everything right, they did everything they were supposed to do or what people told them to do, and a feeling of like they've been lied to, in a sense that it's just that victory isn't as sweet as they thought it would be, that it's almost like they're empty inside, that they are lacking meaning, they're sensing this like void within, that they had told themselves, or they've been told, that when they achieve these creature comforts, when they achieve this level of material success, that, you know, all of that, it would fulfill them, it would be very filling within. And yet they're finding that, you know, they're lacking in this intangible wealth. They've kind of invested in the wrong thing, or they've deprived themselves of meaning and substance in other ways, simply to kind of do what was expected, what looks good on paper. And so it's this artificial life, this emptiness that they feel within, and kind of like what to do about that, how to go about moving beyond, releasing this, stepping into the unknown, into something new, feels to be the major sort of struggle at this point in time for them. I'm going to get one card to see what their possible actions are towards you. I forgot to get one of these cards for group 2. So if you're here from group 2, I'm sorry, I forgot to get you a possible actions card. So yeah, I'm glad I remembered though for 3. And then, you know, for group 4, there was one in group 1. So for whatever reason, that was not meant to be in group 2. It was just not relevant to the reading. So for you though, here in group 3, let's take a look and see what their possible actions are towards you. And we'll just say that this is not like forever and ever, but, you know, in the context of these energies right here, are there any possible actions towards you in the near future? What does that look like? Okay, we've got Ace of Wands, so fire energy again. So this can definitely speak to some sort of reinvigoration, a re-spark in the connection, maybe even just energetically speaking is really what this is tying into for me. Something where them extracting themselves, or them from whatever this circumstance and situation is, their life basically, or through sitting in more of this energy of like the doldrums, feeling very just kind of dull and very sort of empty. It almost is, you're in some way like a light on the horizon. You're like a beacon on the horizon. You represent a polarity of choice for them, a road not traveled. Even if this was like a lot of unactualized potential in the situation between the two of you, it doesn't feel like something where they're going to just dump all of their sort of hopes of like, oh, well, this person will save me, I'll just run in this direction. But it feels to be something a lot more subtle than that. You just kind of like living your life, moving forward, being you and your authenticity. It sparks and inspires this person to kind of like take that leap of faith, take that chance, extract themselves or move beyond, or set those boundaries and limits, just kind of push away from themselves this feeling of emptiness, these circumstances or surroundings that, are not fulfilling them at the soul level. It's like a choice for themselves. It's a choice for substance and meaning, which then brings them closer to aligning more deeply with you. So again, this idea of like wands here, this isn't, it's not swords, it's not communication, it's not pentacles, it's not like an action step, it's not an offer, but it's something where, just it's switching that polarity. It's energetically speaking, their focus shifts more to you. You may feel a resurgence in their energy as they are kind of like building up this stamina, as they are getting fired up about their life again. They're taking some sort of action step to move toward building a deeper sense of fulfillment and fullness with how they are moving through the world, that this brings them closer to you. Some kind of like spark of potential, something even with, the awakening aspect of the twin flame experience between the two of you, that they had just almost like stuffed that down. They'd kind of kicked sand on top of that bonfire and had kind of just moved off into the darkness of self-limitation. It's almost like a step in the other direction unearths that potential, and there's still this ember which remains. That movement on their part brings forth this velocity that kind of like breathes life back into this connection. So they create new potential with you through choosing themselves, through choosing kind of a different feeling of life, a different sensation of life, a different experience of material life than whatever it is they're settling for, rather than kind of continuing to be the imposter in their world, in their reality. It's choosing themselves and, the unknown road toward authenticity, which re-sparks the potential of a future that could still develop between the two of you. So I'm going to get a few messages from their higher self now and see what does your twin flame want to tell you. Okay, we have unexpected blessing. So this is really tying into the idea of a choice that your twin might have made to settle back into a life that was comfortable, to not invest in this connection in the past, maybe because of the intensity of, the energies between the two of you, and, just something that they were not ready to release in their life, or it was outside of the box from what, this idea of sort of like the keeping up with the Joneses. Maybe there's like an age difference between you. There were other sort of circumstances standing in the way. Maybe you were both in other relationships. They were in another relationship. Whatever that looks like, it almost feels that this time apart, or the choice that they made to move in another direction, it has been this blessing in disguise. Because nevertheless, here they are back at this crossroads, where it almost feels like the choice, it's a blessing because now the choice can be made, not as a motivation of like chasing the light of somebody or something else to fill some kind of innate void that they have within themselves, but it's like now they're making the choice to sort of redirect their path in life for themselves first and foremost, which really has the ability to unearth deep potential change within them. Like if they had originally chosen to, to continue to invest, to continue to kind of like feed into this connection, participate with you, it feels like some of these lessons, or this crucial awareness that they needed to experience firsthand of sort of the other end of that spectrum, sitting in kind of this energy of like quiet misery, quiet desperation, it feels like ultimately can help them to appreciate in a more direct level what is available through the connection between the two of you. Not that you won't have your ups and downs, not that it's something like, oh, it's always going to be so exciting and so dramatic in a very positive way. All relationships, even twin flame connections that end in, like romantic 3D unions, there will be doldrums. There will be, times where it just becomes very dull and boring, and then there will be times where the spice picks back up. It's reignited. I mean, it's the human experience. It's high level connection, but it's still a relationship on the 3D plane. So there's all of that in the mix there, but it's a sense of your twin needed to have this experience in kind of this cobweb sort of energy here of the life they'd been living before, that they'd chosen over kind of investing in this or taking a chance in this direction with you, so that if your paths align in the future, through free will and the work you do on yourselves and kind of like divine intervention and all of that, to where 3D romantic union happens between the two of you, they come in with a deeper sense of appreciation because they've experienced the complete antithesis of that. They become very familiar of like that element of actualized void, and now are kind of at the place of needing to sort of fill their own cup to be able to give very reciprocally to you, and to be able to show up more deeply and to appreciate what they have with you in the future. So the whole situation is like a blessing in disguise, and from the higher self, they know that. They also say, I'm clearing past life traumas. So this is that confirmation of getting ready to really clean house, walk away from things, close some doors, distance themselves, move away from a certain life they've been living. This idea of traumas is really tying into like a fear of lack, a fear of, deviating from the crowd, deviating from the expectations others may have projected upon them as far as like what their life should look like, how that should be constructed, who they should be with, what they should be doing for a living, a sense of really fitting into what they were perceiving as normal, and that this is something that they may have really clung to. This idea of sort of like dancing around and trying to really contort themselves in order to fit that perfect picture of success in whatever way that resonates. And it's something that they're at a point now of no longer being able to do that. It's just, they're just rattling around in the life that they live, like an empty tin can here with this scavenger energy. And it's something that on a deep soul level, there's part of them that is just really calling, almost like a survival mechanism within them at the soul level of like, you can't continue on like this because you're just withering away in these circumstances. Every year that goes by, it's just, that light within becomes a little more cloudy. It becomes a little more dim. And it's something where, rather than kind of like continuing to sort of sink into that, for a lot of you, your twin is in the process of, clearing that dust away, clearing a path forward, making a way so that they can kind of plan their escape, so they can move on to, at least kind of this unknown horizon of something else they could grow and develop for themselves as a contrast to what they've been living in at this point in time. And they also say, I know spirit is guiding me. So this can talk about kind of like that ear chakras, that call from within, some kind of like survival mechanism within them at the soul level that is just really making it abundantly clear. It doesn't feel like a whole lot of like signs and synchronicities, just like a nudge within, something that just compels them, is like, you are not making the most of this incarnation by continuing on in this life that you've crafted and constructed for yourself. Something has been awakened in them, within them, through this connection, and whatever choice they've made to kind of like settle back into complacency or choose that lower vibration, they are fundamentally changed within. It feels to be something that's almost kind of pivoting as well. Your growth, your evolution, it sends this signal, this beacon off to them across the distance, across the ether of like, hey, there's another way to be. This isn't all there is. This isn't the only option as far as what life should be like and what it should feel like inside. And so the more you grow, the more that it's kind of like beckoning them as well. It's this spiritual encouragement. It doesn't feel to be something where they're able to consciously sort of say, okay, I'm going to make these changes to move toward this other person. But it's something where it's almost just, it's pulling them from inside, from that place of connectedness that you share with one another at the heart level, despite what things look like in a 3D sense. Your growth and evolution is kind of pulling them to that edge of their comfort zone and saying, there's something more than this. You don't just have to like settle for, and it's not even this in terms of what that looks like on the material sense. It's this in terms of that feeling within. And they also say, stand your ground. So this is really encouraging you to just continue moving forward. Wherever you are at in your pace and place on this journey right now, continue with that. Don't try to like stoop and wait for this person, or try to like invest a lot more energy in encouraging them to change. You continuing to move in that steady pace forward toward whatever abundance awaits you on your horizon, again, continues in a spiritual sense to kind of be that guiding light. You are this sort of beacon on the horizon that at a certain point, if they step far enough outside of this comfort zone, and they start to really lean into these sort of like changes within themselves in different ways, they will gain more clarity as far as like where this motivation's coming from. They will start to see you with different eyes. But it's bringing to mind the idea of like, you can't get well in the same environment which made you sick. So, it's kind of like this soul sickness, or, just these kind of like soul doldrums that they've been in that they can't perceive. the greatest potential between the two of you, because at this time, because where they are at in this current environment, it's almost just, there's just a very limited perception of what normal's like, what's possible, the range of feelings and experiences. It doesn't allow for that. That's not on the spectrum in their current reality. It requires them getting outside of that, stepping like out of this kind of clogged energy into the fresh air in a sense, really just kind of like rejuvenating themselves, shedding all of this, clearing all of this away, this energetic debris, whatever kind of drama, whatever sort of a process it will take to extract themselves from whatever this is, that needs to take place before they are able to be open and to perceive, the possibilities of like, this is the direction I can move in, and then maybe reconciliation or a fresh start, or a new beginning, or a beginning for the first time is possible in this situation. So it feels like something like further down the road. But definitely, the encouragement from their higher self is just continue to move forward. Trust that, if it's something that there is a possibility that they can catch up to you further down the road. So I'm going to get some guidance from Spirit, and then I'll close out with some initials for you. Okay, we have a quest for change, white spirit deer. So confirmation right there to continue on your journey of evolution. All of this green is also talking about like heart chakra energy. There may be cords of attachment that you are needing to actively clear within yourself that attaches you to the idea of an expected outcome, a timeline, what that's going to look like. Again, your twin has to really extract themselves from some things, energetically extract themselves from some things. For those of you that are resonating with this group, it does not feel to be an overnight, they see the light and they come towards you, that there's other things that need to be dismantled. They may be like several steps behind you. But with this idea of like this, this white spirit deer, and it's like, youthful sort of energy, that fresh start is possible in this circumstance and situation. It's going to take time to gestate. It's going to take time to grow. So in the meantime, continue to do that work within yourself to embody and become that love in which you are seeking. Stand that ground. Continue, fighting for that highest potential destiny for yourself, for that, healthy and reciprocal love in whatever form and fashion that comes in for you. And you can't go wrong with that approach. For some of you, your twin will follow through with all of this, and it is possible that you will have that 3D union with one another in this lifetime further down the road. For others of you, this experience with one another, it's going to be something that is merely a doorway for change for the two of you individually. Something where you will always be connected at the heart space, but perhaps in this lifetime, that physical 3D union is meant to occur with other people, or there's different lessons to learn. It remains really open. There's no way to predict with any level of certainty what the absolute outcome is in the situation. So remain very open, very present, and very centered in your heart, answering that call of your heart, not pulling back down into the energy of, clinging or waiting or putting anything on hold within your life in the interest of hoping that this person will change. If they're going to change, they'll change. But the most important thing is that you don't deprive yourself of the opportunity to more deeply become the love you are seeking and to receive that in kind from the outside world. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got O, R, Q, V, W, T, J, K, H, F, S, and A. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 4. You chose the Dalmatian Jasper. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking a look at what your twin flames' thoughts and feelings are about you and the connection right now, where they are at energetically speaking. Okay, we've got the Knight of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Three of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Three of Swords, so more air energy. Seven of Swords, air energy again. Be willing to forgive. Ask the angels to clear your mind and body of past pain in exchange for peacefulness. And if you get nervous, focus on service. Put your entire intention on answering the question, how can I make the world a better place? And the law of attraction will automatically take care of your needs. So this energy is giving me the idea of somebody who's in the process of making amends. It feels like with a lot of people in their life, there may be a long list of bridges that were burned, people that they are even just kind of like going back in their mind, kind of like a mental inventory, a moral inventory at this point in time of circumstances where they didn't act in integrity. They might have been very sneaky, deceptive, anything low vibrational or toxic. Some people, it might not be possible for them to reach out and ask for forgiveness. This feels like they're almost sort of going back to even early childhood, people that they feel that have wronged them, people that they have wronged. It's an energy of like soul searching at this point in time, really dissecting the nature of like heartbreak for themselves on a very deep level, both what they've experienced and what they've caused to other people. And with this is this energy of, kind of recognizing on some level that they could have spoken more gently to you. They could have treated you better. They did not act in accordance with their highest self or with their highest good in terms of their interactions with you. Maybe an energy of like ghosting, blocking, just being very abrupt, lying about, their feelings, not having feelings, maybe something else that they lied about. This can almost be where it's kind of like haunted them in a sense, or there's just this energy of a recognition of like, they need to make this right. This is something that is not sitting very well with them. It's very unsettling. It feels like they've been wrestling with a lot of guilt over what has happened in this situation for quite some time. And there may have been different sort of periods or phases where, they were just sort of like very defensive, leaning into the ego, projecting, blaming, distracting themselves in other ways, definitely like operating in that sort of like shady or shadowy energy for a period of time. But it feels like something where, maybe karma has come back around to them with the Knight of Swords, and they really have almost been put in the same position or made to feel the way that they made you feel. This can also be something that, independent of this connection, where some sort of tables have turned and it has really been like an aha moment for them in general, as far as how their actions have not been serving to make the world a better place, but they've almost been like an agent of chaos, or very sort of like self-involved, self-absorbed, not acting with integrity or from a very high vibration. It feels like kind of reaping the consequences of a lot of these kind of energies that they have sown in the past with other people through words, through kind of like thoughts, saying one thing and operating in another capacity, a lot of broken promises, unfulfilled promises, untruths, just general kind of like mischief and shadiness in a sense, to where they're starting to try to turn a new leaf, or at least understanding that that is something that would be advantageous to them. And it can also be a lot of like self-forgiveness work that they're working on at this point in time, as a prelude to being able to like reach out to other people or to reach out to you. But it's this interest of bringing forth some kind of apology, some sort of like tenderness, some sort of an explanation. And it feels like it might even be occurring at this point in time as like internal conversations, like a back and forth, like a dialogue that they're having with you in their mind about, I should have treated you better, or even just in a very sort of removed sense, I should have treated that person better. That wasn't fair. That wasn't kind. That wasn't right. This Seven of Swords, that even just my finger just kind of flicked that. This is talking about like kind of sneaky, like they may be sort of like watching you from afar, even just kind of like lurking around. You may feel them energetically speaking kind of on the peripheral of your existence. A lot of attention that is being focused on this situation, which energy flows where attention goes. So that can be that confirmation for you, of something, even if they're remaining kind of like quiet, if the wall of silence, the cone of silence is still up around this situation, internally speaking, they've got their gaze fixed on this as something that is not, it's not like you're just out of sight, out of mind. This isn't settling well with them. Even just energetically speaking, it feels very like stuck and uncomfortable. It's kind of like whatever they need to fess up about, even if it's just that, they were operating out of an energy of fear. They projected, they were too like harsh with their words. They weren't very kind, whatever it is, even if it's something very minor. It just feels like it's very uncomfortable getting those words out, formulating, almost like saying sorry isn't enough, or that they're really struggling, needing to sort of like forgive themselves in some manner for the tools that they were operating with at the time that sort of like led to this behavior. So it's sort of like the deeper that they go within, and there's this knowledge of like, I want to bring something, I want to like make amends, I want to, be a positive force, a positive influence in the situation if I am to return, if I am to come back, towards this person, towards my twin flame. That it's something to where the road to get there, it's a road within first. That might be the level of discomfort, is kind of like looking without and saying, I want to make that situation right. But there's an element of like, they need to kind of like look within first and foremost, and figure out what within them was sort of off balance or distorted that led to whatever this is, this kind of like trend in behavior, this approach to this situation, this reactionary energy, a cruel energy, very cutting with their words, an abrupt cutoff, like pulling the rug out from under you kind of an energy right here. A lot of heartbreak that they had caused, that it feels like something that's even like a long overdue apology. Even that might be this element of kind of like discomfort that I'm sensing right now, where it's just, as time continues to go by, they keep being drawn to this, reality of like, I got to make this situation right. But it just becomes harder and harder as time goes on. Like, what do I say? How do I even open these lines of communication? What's my excuse after all this time? So it feels like they're just kind of lurking around, watching, maybe even dropping little hints and innuendos on their social media, hoping that you'll kind of like pick up these cues or clues and maybe be the one to sort of like break the ice first, almost like wishing sort of that you would forgive them without the need for them to apologize. And still kind of, with this idea of like the back being turned, they're still not willing to face something within themselves, but they're kind of just, they're at point A and they're focused on, like point T, and they're not understanding all those little steps that they're needing to take, that journey within themselves. It's kind of like, I wish I could just do a quantum leap and fast track to this place where it's all good again. Everything's solved, where everything's fine between us again. And so a bit of kind of like denial and avoidance still that's going on with sort of these elements and aspects of themselves, but they're definitely like focused on you. They're focused on what happened in the past. They're focused on this understanding and this knowledge of like, that wasn't a good thing to do. It wasn't a kind thing to do. It didn't accrue good karma. This was not a good vibration to put out. This is not the, impression I want to continue to like make on the world around me. Feeling very bad about the last impression that you have of them, or kind of an idea of like, what must you think of them at this point in time? They're all tangled up in their head. Kind of a lot of dreary thoughts, a lot of sneakiness at this point in time, but rather than being sort of like sneaky in a nefarious sense, it's almost just sort of like feeling very guilty and not necessarily ready to like come out, not feeling worthy of forgiveness in a sense, almost very nervous about that, very nervous to speak some kind of truth, maybe even just kind of like building up the situation into being more than it was. If it wasn't even anything that terrible that kind of caused the two of you to move your separate ways or that created distance, it might be something where they almost are feeling very guilty within themselves because they weren't acting in accordance with the truth of what they were feeling at the time. It was in some way motivated by fear or some distortion within, to where maybe they didn't, take advantage of opportunities to develop the connection further. They denied feelings when instead they had deep and profound feelings that persist for you to this day. And it's an essence of kind of like, how to come back from that. There's a lot that needs to be explained, and it's difficulty explaining themselves, which is keeping them like at a distance, like watching you from a distance, fly on a wall, lurking around, poking around, sleuthing around. It feels to be something where this would be almost like they're Googling you, they're driving by your house, keeping an eye out for you in familiar places, maybe just kind of like, this would almost be like with a social media presence. They're not going to follow, they're not going to subscribe, they're not going to risk any kind of anyone finding out about that, you finding out about all that, and yet every single day they're going to like search and go on that page. A couple times a day they're going to go and check it out, but then kind of like try to erase their tracks as much as possible, clear that search history, clear those cookies off their browser, so that it's not, even if there's nobody around, if they're single, if there's no one that could kind of like poke into that and find anything out, it's just, there's an energy of guilt and shame that is still associated with this, where they feel really bad about how things ended. There's something that needs to be brought forth, something that needs to be spoken, but in order to get there, it almost requires letting themselves off the hook from some kind of like guilt, or addressing something within themselves, some shift within this heaviness that they hold within, that is the key to unlocking communication in the circumstance. So I'm going to take a look at some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they are facing right now, other than very much like heaviness as far as communication is concerned. It's almost, the way this feels right now is kind of like a heaviness in the pit of the stomach and like a lump in the throat. Like there's just so much trapped in this kind of region right here that it almost feels to be something where they're avoiding these feelings deep inside. They can't bring themselves to that heart-centered communication at this point because the words just won't come out right. And there's a lot of just kind of heaviness and remorse that they're holding. They're very grounded to whatever this kind of breaking point was between the two of you. They're very stuck and kind of like fixated on that, very haunted by that energy. So other than that, or in addition to that, maybe there'll be further clarifiers for that or something that reinforces that. What are some of the other kind of fears, challenges, obstacles, and barriers that they're facing right now? Okay, so we have upheaval, direction, and scavenge. So this idea of upheaval here is really talking about, this fear of kind of upsetting this uncomfortable balance between you. It's a sense of like, should I just let sleeping dogs lie? Is it too little too late? I don't want to cause like more difficulties than have already been caused. And with that is just this sense of not being able to kind of bring that personal truth up from the place where it's just kind of like festering within them. A lot of guilt that they are holding on to, that they're having a difficult time releasing themselves from. This feels to be bigger, although one of the primary objectives and focuses is what has happened in this circumstance. And it might almost be that this is dovetailing into all these other kind of like retracing of the steps. Like they're very fixed on sort of how they almost feel that they failed you in this situation, how they didn't act above board or acted in a very sort of like low vibrational or toxic manner, deceptiveness, whatever that looks like. And kind of the more that they're just stuck at that sort of point, they're not able to really move beyond that in either direction. They can't let it go, and they also can't do anything to alleviate that or to amend that at this point in time. What they can do is look around at that similar kind of spectrum and vibration, this idea of direction. Now they're seeing kind of a wider pattern, and it's leading up to, all of these different things, incidents in childhood, that maybe where they were meant to feel the same way, or where they made somebody else feel the same way. It's all these different kind of examples of how powerful words are and how careless they may have been with that. Because with all these swords, it's definitely something with like communication, words that were spoken, words that were withheld, something that was like, a lie, a stretching of the truth, a suppression of the truth, anything. It can be anything along the lines of what is expressed. And that this is something that, it's a wider pattern than just this circumstance. So in a way, it's almost this place that they are very stuck at, that they can't effectively move beyond in any sort of way. They keep being like drawn back to this reality. It's helping them to kind of get a greater perspective of some core or fundamental aspect of them, maybe something rooted in childhood that is kind of like it's working to their disadvantage. It's like finding the origin point of some tendency of self-sabotage, carelessness with words. It's tying into the idea as well with the scavenge and like this emptiness within. They're at a loss of what to say. They don't know how to apologize. They are kind of struggling to find the words or the meaning in all of this, kind of the value in the circumstance that they've created. If it had been very reactionary, whatever was said, whatever kind of like shadiness happened, that has led to this kind of like guilty conscience that they're holding on to, they're really struggling to sort of remember and recall what was so compelling about taking that road. What felt like this was the right decision to make. And they're coming up empty with that. They're coming up very much short in that capacity. It's a sense of kind of like emptiness within, or a void or a lack within, almost like hurt people. That's something that they're really just, they're buckling under that pressure. It's something to where it's very uncomfortable to like look into that, to look very deeply into that. They're struggling to like find the meaning and how to really repair that. It's being at a loss. How do I fix this? Where do I even begin? And it's almost like the more that they're kind of peeling back the layers and retracing their steps into earlier experiences in their life, other experiences in their life where this has been like a trend or a pattern, they're having a hard time picking up some different tools. They may really lack tools of communication. They may be at a point of needing to, branch out and get some kind of therapy, for example, or, to start to enter into the realm of exploring, like self-help and kind of psychology and all these different things to sort of understand that, like why some hurt from when they were a child has resulted in them sort of undermining or sabotaging connections or being very cruel and cutting with their words into adulthood. It's a sense of kind of like, how do I loose myself from this? How do I fill this space within me with something else? So maybe even just kind of a lack of tools, a lack of understanding, a lack of direction as far as like how to fix all of this. It just feels like motion pictures in their mind. It's all these different kind of like memories and these hurt feelings, and this heaviness within that they feel very much at a loss of kind of like, how do I move beyond this? How do I get out of this space? So it's like a dark night of the soul, but it's really it's almost this visual of kind of somebody walking around and there's just like a rain cloud that's kind of like pouring over them, and it's dry and sunny everywhere else, but they're just kind of, it's just a very kind of depressed and just kind of like crushed sort of energy, that for whatever reason, whatever has sparked and motivated this, they are in this energy of knowing that something needs to change. They need to clean up the way in which they are moving through the world, in which they're talking to people. This situation is one of the major examples of somewhere where they need to come clean. They need to, it almost feels like they're trying to overcomplicate it with all these empty tin cans right here. They're almost thinking too much into this very elaborate explanation that needs to happen. Maybe with all of this kind of logical energy, they're sort of like over planning, over strategizing, over scripting, when all it would be is like a simple "I'm sorry" could open up the door to mutually building into a place of forgiveness. But this heaviness is so much that it's like, "I'm sorry" is not sufficient. So they feel very much at a lack as far as how to move forward, very stuck in place, very much out of options, a lot of kind of closed doors. It's tying into the idea as well of like tables having turned. This tendency or trend within them may have really kind of cost them lately. They may have lost opportunities, friendships. People could have really just sort of slammed the door in their face. A lot of this could have really come back around to them, and they feel to be in a place where they might not have a lot of people on their side. It's very lonely. They may be kind of like down and out in a sense. Even if they have people around them, it's just like that rain cloud. It's like no one can really understand this. No one can really understand this sort of guilt and shame that they are carrying around, long embedded kind of like guilt and shame that just sort of haunts and follows them, feeling very much at a lack as far as like how to improve that, what to do to sort of like change direction in this, looking around and kind of coming up short with their previous sort of approaches and tactics, a sense of their old tools of coping and moving through the world are no longer sufficient. They've got this level of awareness, and kind of how they were operating before, it doesn't fit what's required in order to move forward or to create like alleviation in this situation. So I'm going to take a look and see what their possible actions are towards you. Okay, and so this should just be taken as like in the context of, the energies kind of surrounding this reading. So sort of like, the immediate future, the near future. This isn't like forever and ever actions, but in the context of this reading, what are their possible actions towards you? And we've got the 9 of Swords, so more of that air energy. It feels like more, at least in kind of the immediate future and the proximity of this, more of being trapped in their head, more of being very fearful, maybe fearful that, you're going to lash out at them, fear that it will just make matters worse. Almost even something that, again, might not have been that big of a deal, and they've made it into be something a lot more scary than it needs to be as far as approaching you, trying to overcomplicate what that delivery is going to look like, rather, and like failing to see it may just take, with this little owl over this one sword. It may just take a very simple "I'm sorry" to open that door. Not that that's the end of the conversation, but it's almost like they're planning this huge diatribe that needs to come forth, and really getting kind of like caught up in all of that, trying to overly plan or overly predict, like, well, if I say this and they say that, this will be my response, and if this happens, then I'll do that. They're tangled up in all of that. So it feels like more of that, more of this anxiety, more of the sleepless nights, more of that heaviness, words that won't come up, not leaning into the place of the heart to guide them forward, but being very just kind of like trapped and very oppressed by this energy. So, it is going from, there is evolution here from this idea of like 3 of Swords, 7 of Swords, 9 of Swords. So, they are getting closer to that point of like looping back around into what would be Ace of Swords, the truth, that communication. So that is possible, somewhere in the future, but at least it feels for like the immediate proximity. The next possible actions are more of just the silence, suffering in silence, being very much in their head, very wrapped up in this, in a low vibrational and tense sort of manner, very fearful energy, feeling very ill-equipped to really do anything about this, but a lot of regret, a lot of agony over what has taken place, and kind of as time goes on, that only just seems to compound further. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see, what does your twin flame want to tell you at this point in time? Okay, we have 1 year. So this is really tying in for me with this idea of they want to close up this cycle of no communication with you. They want to make up for the past. They want a fresh start. They want it to be year 1. They want to go back to those innocent energies before whatever they said or whatever they did, before words got in the way and it was so complicated. But they're having a very difficult time resetting this situation. They're very tangled up in their head. They can't get past that kind of jumping off point in order to make some sort of action towards you. This could be something, again, that if this is like a long period of time since this has happened, it's almost like every year that goes by, it just makes it more and more difficult. You are not out of sight, out of mind. As the years continue to unfold, they are very much stuck in kind of this breaking point between the two of you. They've been unable to evolve in a lot of ways, and it's really keeping them stuck and trapped in a cycle of like anxiety and just discomfort over the way things turned out. And they also say, I feel frustrated and stressed out. So that's a reinforcement right there of all of this anxiety, all of this heaviness, this guilt, this shame, fear of making matters worse, fear of missing the opportunity to potentially make matters better. They're really in their head at this point in time, overcomplicating things. But really sitting in this energy, which actually is a very positive thing. They might not be fully kind of looking within and accepting the full sort of responsibility and their capacity to create change within themselves, which can then create change in the situation. It feels to still be a little bit almost like, I wish there was a way to just kind of avoid that difficult conversation, smooth things out. Great, we're back to normal. So there's still a little bit of kind of deferring that hard work, but it's something that they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. Something needs to change. Something needs to give. They're feeling the pressure of kind of all of these reminders of how whatever has taken place here in this circumstance and situation, it's not isolated to just this situation. This is a trend for them. This is something that they've done this before in different manners, in different ways, especially if something like this was done to them, whatever this was, just they were put in that same feeling space as they put you, treated very unfairly, spoken to very unkindly, maybe lied to or toyed with, emotions being toyed with in a sense, that it's something that they are now feeling what you have felt, and it's frustrating to like know that agony and to not be able to turn back the hands of time and do something different. This is definitely the energy of like, if I could go back in time if I could do something different, I would have treated you better. I would have been honest. I would have been, more kind with my delivery. I would have opened the lines of discussion. I wouldn't have just run away in the night, that kind of a thing. And so they're having a hard time kind of like unsticking themselves from this. They can't find a way forward, and yet they're unable to fully detach from this awareness that they need to make amends or want to make amends in this situation. They also say you are a highly sensitive empath. So this can tie into that element of kind of the pressure that they're putting on themselves. They may see you as very empathic, very psychic, very intuitive, where they understand they need to come to you correctly, or you will, your radar is very sharp, your discernment's very sharp, maybe even especially with what has happened in any time that has passed. There's almost a sense of you're not going to tolerate the same sort of like tricks or tactics that they utilized before, that they need to come to you in a high vibrational level, or this situation is just going to crash and burn. It's going to dissolve or collapse into kind of some of those worst case scenarios that they are thinking about, that they're envisioning or kind of circling around in their mind. So there's a lot of pressure that they're putting on themselves. It's making them very fearful of approaching you at this point in time or ever, and a sense too of like that you can almost sense the distress, because with all of this sort of mental energy, you definitely may be picking up on like the vibrations of anxiety and fear emanating from this person in your direction, because there's this desire to make movement, to make contact, but it comes with just this frequency of fear to where you're picking up a lot of this kind of like dissonance and these uncomfortable vibrations for them. They may sense that you've put up some energetic walls, energetic boundaries, and that's making them very fearful as well. If they're lurking around and kind of like checking things out, scoping out from the sidelines and from the shadows, they may sense as well that you've really stepped into a season of personal empowerment. You've taken your power back from a lot of situations, and this situation as well, perhaps. And it's something to where it's almost raised the bar of what's expected for them. It's up the ante in a way to where they're not really sure if they have what it takes to kind of like match you at that level of rigorous honesty. They're seeing you as kind of having expanded in some way. You've gone through a glow up. You've really kind of stepped into your power, and from them in this kind of vibration, even just of that heaviness of guilt and shame, it's a noticeably low vibrational energy that's part of their field at this point. It's that rain cloud that follows them around, where they're almost just like they can't reach you at that level of high vibration. There's so much fear that is like holding them back from that true authenticity at this point, that it's leaning into this idea of like feeling frustrated and stressed out, how to make this situation right, and feeling very lacking presently in the ability to do that. And they also say, I am being sincere. So this ties into the idea of knowing they need to come to you correct. They need to come to you in a high vibrational way. Utter honesty is what's required at this point in time, but they're very fearful of how that will be received, if you'll receive them at all, if you're just going to slam the door in their face, literally or figuratively, if reaching out would make matters worse, and yet they can't successfully move away from this knowledge of they need to say or do something. As uncomfortable as this is, it's almost like there's a part of them that won't allow them to move on. The universe may have really brought back to them, dished back out to them what they gave to you, and it's become abundantly clear of like, this is something that you need to make this right, regardless of if it ends in just kind of vindication, if it closes a chapter, or if there's a fresh start. It's almost like, to move forward successfully toward peace in this life, it requires making peace in this situation as well, which is a very scary prospect, and yet they keep being drawn toward that, trying to kind of like find and formulate a way to breach the silence and to bring forth something by way of communication. So I'm going to get some guidance from Spirit, and then I'll close it out with some initials. Okay, we have hold your wisdom close, guardian of the sacred vessel. So this card actually came out in group 2. So if you felt drawn to watch that group, you may want to do so after this one. There could be additional messages there for you. But this is really just indicating that it's part of this person. It's part of your twins evolution at this point in time to be that one to make contact first. A lot of you may kind of feel, as you're sensing all of these energies directed towards you, you're either inclined to cut some energetic cords, put up some boundaries, or it might be something where you're starting to really think to yourself, should I reach out to them first? Is that what this is really indicating? And your own sort of discernment, your own intuition has to be your guide in that capacity. But in the context of this reading, it's really encouragement for you. This is a necessary part of your twins' evolutionary process, is to be the one to do the right thing. Or at least, even if it's something very minor, even if this wasn't like a major falling out and they're just kind of building the situation up to be more than it needs to be, there's something here about them breaking through to the heart center in order to bring forth authenticity, in order to bring forth true communication, facing the fear and walking beyond it. It feels to be a major hurdle in their overall ascension journey. And so you really serve them and the situation the most by allowing them, like holding your ground, standing in your truth, continuing to radiate in this vibration of authenticity, sovereignty, continue taking your power back and asserting yourself so that it raises that standard and allows them to hoist themselves up out of this vibration of like lack and fear. It's necessary on their journey, and they know that. So it's this idea of almost just like, this cup here is also sort of like withheld, kind of cloaked. So another bit of guidance is like, if they come back in, if they successfully kind of reach through the spirit, may come through in sort of a stumbling way. Your instinct, your spidey senses may be alerted, your guard may be up. You're encouraged to follow that, to really tap into that. Read beyond the kind of this indigo cloak here, this third eye energy. Use your intuition to really feel into, are they being sincere? Or do they still need to kind of like work on some of these vibrational things within themselves? Are they still showing up in this energy of lack? Are they still being sneaky? Are they still being deceptive? Do they still need to kind of be thrown back out to sea and grow and evolve in a certain way before they are able to bring forth something that is almost like worthy of reciprocating the cup of love that you have to offer? So this definitely feels like something where, you're in a place of moving in the right direction. To continue to move forward, allow your twin to take those steps necessary to make that communication. Trust that whatever you're picking up from them, whatever kind of anxiety and fear-based energies at this point in time, it is relating to this knowledge and awareness they have that some kind of communication is necessary. That is at the forefront of their awareness. They can't wiggle out of that no matter how much they try. But also with that is try to resist the urge to kind of like make it easy on them or to do this hard work for them. This feels to be part of their lesson at this point in time, is to take that higher road. It's part of their evolution. So kind of like do them the service of allowing them to grow and evolve to the place where they lead with transparency and truth, so that the two of you can then sort of evolve into a different stage of your connection. You can successfully and reciprocally move beyond whatever this kind of roadblock is, or this speed bump that you've encountered at this point in time. But they need, in this, for most of you, they need to be the one to kind of like take that step towards you. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got L, V, S, R, K, Z, D, G, E, Y, O, and X. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.